So let's go back since we're going to change your brain around here. Let's go back. We're going back to and I was obsessed last night thinking about Garland and Texas and where you grew up and everything. You got to go back and visit Angel's grave. Is that the first time you'd been since the funeral?
No, I've been there one
Mm-hmm.
time before that.
Yeah. And where is it roughly?
It's in Rowlett.
Oh, it's in Raleigh.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Rowlett. Yeah.
Yeah, I was blown away that Shannon like never sent me a picture or anything of it before when he knew exactly where to take you,
Yeah.
where to go. But looking back again, you talked about you guys as a family weren't that close. I don't know if it was dysfunction or if it was just the
No, it
fact
was
that
dysfunctional.
it was why is it dysfunctional? You just didn't communicate a lot. So
How can you be any more dysfunctional than that?
well, I got to ask again. Literally, you and Angel, Granddad, were never able to really have a conversation.
No.
That doesn't even make any sense. What did he ever call you by name?
Uh, I don't remember.
Okay, you win dysfunction. I'll say you win that one. I
He
have
just
to get
said, "Get over here and do this and that."
Yeah.
I mean, he was a hard man. He really was, and like I said, he always had something. You talk about he was 60 years old when I was born. Well, when time he got in his 70s, and you got a 10, 12-year-old
yeah
kid that's just
yeah
probably lazy and who wants to work physical labor at that time? Seriously, because he would make me do stuff. I remember, we'd have fire uh, heaters, and we'd go in there, had this cart, we'd load up with wood from the woods, and then we'd have to get up there one of them saws, one of them cross saws.
yeah oh yeah
And
yeah.
I'd get on one end, he'd get on the other. I'm thinking, he's a grown man. I'm a kid. How can he make me do this? And so the less I had to do with him or be around him, the less I had to do.
I have to bring it up because we're unfiltered here. We haven't found a name for what we're going to call this, but we're going to call it straight up. You left for a couple of days and didn't come back. This is a story you told me as a kid, and you snuck back in to get in bed to try to, and he come in there with a rope
Yes.
and beat the crap out of you.
Yes. It was a big rope, too.
And what did you do to deserve such a thrashing?
Well, I had to be 13 or 14
That's
years
what I
old.
figured. Yeah, from what we talked about.
And my brother-in-law, he was bad. He was alcoholic.
Who was that?
Troy.
Troy. Yeah, Troy.
Troy.
Okay.
And he would take me with him, and we went somewhere, and we went, he's out drinking and carousing and everything. We'd go to 2 days.
Oh my goodness.
They did not know where I was at. Now, and I'll come back, and like I said, I slipped back in the window, got in the bed, and here he come. And boy, did I get it. Not only did he beat me, but next day he run me off. I had to go to my sister's and live there because he
Yeah.
said, "You get out of here."
Yeah.
Because that's how he was. He was very disciplined.
Yeah.
If you made a mistake, he's gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
But think about it. He's 70 something.
Yeah.
Here I am, 12, 13-year-old kid, gone for 2 days, and I stayed a few days with my sister. Finally, my mother comes and said, "Hey, he wants you to come back home." So,
He's
yeah.
cold-blooded.
Yeah.
He's a cold-blooded dude. I kind of respect it. I kind of like that.
And two is as I look back at it, I had a lot of that blood in me, so I can
Yeah.
understand how he was.
Oh yeah. Now I've had to the stories you told me and talking about Granddad and how your temperaments were. The side of me that has that temper, I have felt it. I have dealt with it. But once I had children, it just
Yeah.
squelched it, and I practice not to let it out. I mean, I run my mouth sometimes, as you know, to people. But I've learned to, because the stories you told me, you said how bad he was, and I can't even imagine that. I cannot even imagine. It sounds like you when you were younger without a filter. When you were when I was growing up, it was like if you had no boundaries, this is who you would be, because he obviously didn't. But now, is it true now that he like wore the same pair of pants every day?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, see, I do the same thing. I'll wear this, and I wash them,
Yeah.
but I wear the same. Like I have what I've had on the last 2 days.
Yeah.
I can't help it. I want my comfortable pants on every day. I'm about to a yearly trip of buying a pair of pants, but It also, like you say, I saw a picture, or say he tied a rope around his. But you
Yeah,
said you thought it was because he might have had a hernia.
yeah, I did because he had a what called sash, and he would just I see him tighten it up around
Yeah,
his
yeah.
midsection.
And then he fell in the barn.
Yeah,
Or
he was up in the hayloft, and he had to be at least in his 70s
yeah,
because you know we worked there where we lived at that time at a place that housed cattle, and he would feed the cattle and he was a cowboy because he like I said he was around 70 and had a horse and go and I could see him riding down the field checking on cows and stuff. But he was up in the loft or something and fell and hit his head. So,
yeah.
but there's one thing that I did get from my dad that I really like. You know, we were, like I said, he was bad about wanting to beat the heck out of us. And man, we do something, he'd try to get us to whip me. And if I could get away and be gone for a few hours, he'd forget it. Now, at one time we lived in this house where, you know, it was up on
Yeah.
blocks and
Yeah.
everything. And if I could get away with him, I'd slip under that house, stay for a couple of hours, come back, and hey, everything be okay.
That is how you were to a huge extent. If you could get past the day, and just
Yeah.
get through the initial. And I remember the last time I got a butt whipping, and it was bad. And I was 12 years old. And I remember I told myself that night, never again. If I have to go jump on a train or if I have to do whatever, never. I said I'll never let that happen again. But the thing is that I think that and like Joe hardly talked about him and Ross hardly talked about it. It's almost like I don't know what it was, but they just didn't have Ross's take was different. But Uncle Joe, he just had nothing to say about him. What was that about?
They didn't get along at all because they were both hot tempered.
Yeah.
They were he would, and I had a hot temper, but not like those two. But what I said I got from Dad is because somebody can do something to me, cuss me out, do something, and I sleep over it.
Yeah.
I forget about
Yeah.
it. It's nothing. It's over.
I'm the same way. I want it to be done.
Yeah.
The next day, I'm like, I don't have the energy. I'm
Yeah.
not going to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But Joe, you told me one time that Angel could be very abusive with Grandma.
Oh, yeah.
He was that way. And that Joe finally got to the point to where he wasn't going to, he didn't let him do that.
Yeah, because I remember he was trying to hit Mother or something. They got an argument, and I think he had a belt or something. I remember Joe went up there and grabbed and took the belt out and said, "Don't you ever hit her. If you're gonna hit somebody, you hit me."
Yeah.
And that's
he sure wouldn't want
that's
to
really the last I
Yeah,
remember.
I don't think that he wanted to mess with Joe, him being that age and Joe becoming of age, you know. But Uncle Joe I always wondered about how his temperament was. Uncle Joe, I miss him because he thought I was the man. Like I didn't have the grandfather
That's
thing.
because you just like
Yeah, but I didn't have the grandfather thing, around where you always said you hated I didn't have grandparents to be around. Of course, Grandma came down after I was 18. But Joe thought I was just awesome. One of the most the greatest compliments when little Joe was born. He said, "I want him to be just like you." And I was thinking, you don't want him to be just like me. And little Joe is amazing. He
is a lot like you.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's like his dad because his younger brother.
His younger brother is like his dad.
He is. He doesn't do well.
Well, it's I've told friends at different times that talking about temperament. That because I guess you're watered down after a while, my temperament watered down to the point to where I still had that fire if I needed to be determined, if that makes any sense. I always believe that God makes us and gives us as you used to say, bents or issues, but you have them for a reason because I'm able to address the situation. Like if other people if it hits the fan, I'm able to step in and be stern. I'm able to be helpful. I'm able to be loving. I'll be the guy that says no. But that's how you were. See, you and Mom both actually were like that. The worst things got, suddenly these other people jumped up and said, all right. Because you would always say, okay, that's enough. And suddenly you were in to fix everything. I think that people hold grudges or never get over stuff because they don't have what we have. Because, you let us sleep it off. and I'm
Yeah,
done.
that's good.
I've got other things to do. I've got other things to enjoy.
But there's a time and place to get angry.
Yeah.
The scriptures talk about righteous anger.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
should be angry about
Yeah.
a sin that was see, especially like if I see somebody mistreating somebody or trying to make somebody that does not go well with me. They can say anything to me or try to hurt my feelings, and it don't matter. But when I see it done to those that can't defend themselves, now that's
Yes.
where I get
Yeah.
a little upset.
Yeah, but in all fairness to Angel, and I don't dismiss anybody that had over the top temperament or whatever. But Dad, you look at it like this: had he not beat the crap out of you, or sent you off, or did, or even then that meant that he wouldn't have cared if he didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Obviously he had his rules and the way that he saw things. But just like how I grew up with Mom, you were always talking about how tough she was on me. Oh no, I look back and go, I get up and get at it because of her. I get up and like, oh, I got to do. I don't. You never had to wonder if I was going to show up at work. You never had to wonder if I was on task. But she would not have it any other way. And so I believe you just grow up blessed in the situation that you're in because it helps mold who you are.
Yeah, I tell you, I look back, and it took a long time before I really just broke down and cried one day. And I remember at the office one day with the way my relationship with Dad was.
Yeah.
And I think back and I think, here he was when he was born. Just think about how close it was when Texas took over.
1885.
Mexico.
I mean, that's every time I pass the damn 1885 place down here, I think about Granddad being born. I'm like 1885.
And so, don't know how he was treated during that time.
Oh God. God. Yeah.
Because it was bad when I was,
Yeah.
in school.
Yeah.
And that was, years after he went to adulthood and what he had to put it with. So, because he was very racist.
Yeah.
And that caused me not to want to be racist. Cause he didn't care if you was white or black. If you were Mexican, he didn't care.
Yeah.
And so I said, no, we'd get in trouble associated with the black kids that lived down the road or with the white kids that I went to school with. They didn't want none of that.
Yeah, and again, I think about that too. I thought about him deeply, and of course, your youngest grandson Jake, he drew a picture. Remember that picture he drew, or that little cartoon thing where it was a guy with a hat on, and he drew that, not ever knowing anything about Angel. But we talked about the fact of imagine the stories he could have told. From 1885, you didn't have automobiles, you weren't airplanes. He lived through 2 wars. The world wars. And he saw all this, and he had to put up with the racist end of life, and it was hard. And you're thinking, that's a lot. And by the time you met him, I say you meet him because he's over 60 years old. He's obviously at the last stage of his life, and you didn't even ever know the man, as far as who he really was and what brought him to that point, Grandma couldn't even tell me a lot about him, It wasn't good, which she did tell me.
Well, it was hard to understand, Mother.
It was hard to understand.
I was telling a friend of mine, Linda, I said, I hate that I didn't ask Mother more about things, how they come to Texas, because she come over with a baby, ended up in East Texas and us in Dallas. And I said, I wished I could have asked her a question, but I had trouble understanding whatever she said.
I did too. I did not understand a lot of what she said. But you know what? She sure as heck made it through life without being able to read or write.
Yeah.
And man, she always got it done.
Yeah.
I'd get those cards in the mail, where she'd try to write it herself. It always had me checks in there, which was good. But it was amazing all that she had been through and how she made it being illiterate, Because I remember, and I didn't really, I'm aloof. I mean, look, I didn't realize Mom and Ann were sisters until I was 14. Okay, so you can, I see you calling me Joe. But I remember sitting down at a restaurant with her, after I was 18, and we sat down and she handed out menus and she goes, "Oh, honey, here, I don't read." And I go, "Who doesn't read?" So I was like, how can you not read a menu?
Yeah.
But it was, but no, I think about Angel a lot, and I'm always thinking about those years before you were born, that was a long time, of life that he had lived and seen, and his life was basically done by the time you were a teenager,
Yeah.
Well, it was because he passed away at 75. But he's always in pretty good health, or was he?
No, he got sick one time, and there was they called a doctor. Back then, doctors made house calls.
Yeah.
This is a long time ago, but the doctor said he had enough things wrong with him to kill 5 or 6 men.
Yeah.
But he lived a long time after that, even. But,
Well, he was hombre. You know,
yeah.
he was who gave him that name?
I guess the people that we worked for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody called him hombre.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. I wish I could have known him. That would have been. I think he would have liked me. I think he might not have liked you. I think he would have liked me. So.